This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday, May 6, 2021. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, the blowback in the latest chapter in the ongoing battle between big tech and former President Donald Trump as Facebook extends its ban against the former president, and conservatives call it another example of Facebook's bias. China's crackdown on Christians in cyberspace, blocking Christian accounts on a popular Chinese app and removing Bible apps. Former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker taking on a new challenge, fighting cancel culture and working to make sure young Americans can hear conservative views. And famous actor Chuck Norris delivering a special Mother's Day message and a happy birthday to his very own mom, who turned 100 this week. All those stories and more are ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to begin this half hour with the latest chapter in the ongoing battle between big tech and former President Trump, after Facebook's new oversight board says the tech giant can continue its ban of his accounts for now, but it must decide in 6 months whether the ban will be permanent. Critics say the highly anticipated decision highlights Facebook's tremendous power and the need for big tech reform. Senior National Affairs correspondent Heather Sells brings us the story.
Facebook's announcement means that for now, the former president cannot return to the platform where he enjoyed, along with Instagram, 59 million followers. The paid oversight board upheld the suspension because of 2 posts that violated content standards. One with Trump telling rioters on January 6th,
"We love you. You're very special."
The other calling them great patriots. Trump fired back in a statement on his new website. What Facebook, Twitter, and Google have done is a total disgrace and an embarrassment to our country.
It's far past time that we address the what big tech has become. It's the robber barons of the 21st century.
Conservatives say the move makes clear Facebook's bias.
Look, they are picking sides. They are putting their thumb on the scale of freedom of speech.
And I can tell you that it is 2 different standards, one for Donald Trump and one for a number of other people that are on their site.
Around the globe, world leaders are taking note. Earlier this year, both Germany and France attacked Facebook and Twitter for banning Trump. Germany's Angela Merkel believes lawmakers, not big tech, should set the rules around free speech. There's a similar debate in the U.S., but also growing bipartisan support to go after modern-day monopolies.
What I think is important is that we continue to break down the power of these dominant digital platforms and provide greater accountability and transparency around their rules.
Facebook's oversight board said Wednesday that it is not fair to indefinitely suspend users. It says that in 6 months, the tech giant must either restore Trump's account, permanently suspend it, or suspend it for a set amount of time. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Turning now to Israel, for the past 12 years, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dominated the nation's politics, but now he may soon find himself in a different position, no longer leader of the government and instead a member of the opposition. Israeli President Reuven Rivlin has chosen Yair Lapid to try to form the next coalition government after Netanyahu could not do so. Lapid is the head of the Yesh Atid party that won 17 seats in the last election. He faces a daunting political challenge to form a coalition of natural adversaries from the right, left, and center. They disagree on many issues, but agree on stopping Benjamin Netanyahu from continuing as prime minister. If Lapid succeeds, it could mark the beginning of the end of the Netanyahu era.
After more than 12 consecutive years of Netanyahu as prime minister, after 2 years of paralysis, it looks like perhaps within a few days or a few weeks, we might have a functioning coalition that will not include Mr. Netanyahu. This will be a groundbreaking change in Israeli recent history. And in this respect, we might be entering a new era in Israeli politics.
Lapid has 28 days to form a government. If he fails, Rivlin could allow a 3-week period when any Knesset member could try to cobble a coalition together. If that does not work, Israelis will head to the polls for the 5th time in just in just a little more than 2 years. The COVID pandemic devastated the global tourism industry, and that hurt Israel because the tourism sector is a key part of its economy. So now Israel is trying to bring it back. Chris Mitchell brings us the story now from Tel Aviv.
In 2019, Israel set a record for tourism when 4.5 million visitors came to the Holy Land. Then the 2020 pandemic slammed the door, causing the number of tourists to plummet more than 80%, resulting in a loss of $8 billion. For more than a year, the COVID pandemic kept tourists from coming to visit Israel, like the city of Tel Aviv behind me. Now Israel's tourism ministry has a plan to reopen Israel to the world.
We are starting the first pilot on the 23rd of May. It will take place for a few weeks, by which we will bring in no more than 20 or more groups of tourists, fully vaccinated with travel agents, so that it can be monitored on one hand, and we can also learn from the lessons and improve the rules and see if things need to be improved.
Then, hopefully about a month later, an unlimited number of groups may be allowed in. By July, it's possible Israel will open its doors to individuals. Still, this timetable could change, since the health ministry recommended the May 23rd date be delayed until the end of June. Israel's reopening comes after an aggressive vaccination campaign that's seen most of the population vaccinated, with COVID rates dropping dramatically.
Israel is now fully open. The attractions, the restaurants, the hotels, our numbers of COVID-19 cases are getting fewer and fewer every day. We're waiting for you to come.
Incoming tourists, however, will have to jump through some hoops. The plan requires all to be fully vaccinated. They must have a negative COVID test before boarding the flight and then take an antibodies test upon arrival. Nearly half of all tourists coming here are Christian, because for many, coming to Israel is like a dream.
I want to say to Christians around the world that Israel is missing you and is looking forward to you coming and seeing all the sacred place and the history.
Yet some Christians in the U.S. remain reluctant to get the vaccine.
Unfortunately, I don't have very optimistic messages for them. Israel is now in a very, very good condition health-wise. It's a very healthy destination, and we cannot put that in danger.
While it's a small start, Israel hopes once again millions of visitors will return to the Holy Land. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Tel Aviv, Jaffa.
Here at home, today marks the 70th annual National Day of Prayer, and Christians across the country are joining together to call on God for the sake of our country. The event will be held in several locations nationwide. The theme of this year's event is Love, Life, and Liberty, drawing from 2 Corinthians 3:17, which declares, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty." Evangelist Andrew Palau is co-hosting the National Live Day event with Kathy Branzell. You can find out more about today's Day of Prayer and why Dr. James Dobson says if there was ever a time America needed prayer, it's now. All of that is at cbnnews.com. Coming up, China's Communist Party carrying out an online crackdown against Christians. We'll tell you what's happening and how it could have implications for believers in other countries when we come back.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
In ministering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Your news channel. Your shows. The stories you care about. Anytime you want. Anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
China's Communist Party is expanding its crackdown against Christians in cyberspace. International Christian Concern reports Christian accounts have been blocked on the popular online program WeChat, and Bible apps have been removed from the China App Store. On this week's episode of The Global Lane, China Aid President Bob Fu says that action proves the party is determined to erase and destroy the Chinese church.
With the so-called pandemic, of course, excuses, now the Christian churches, including both the official government-sanctioned churches and the independent house churches, they were all not allowed to operate even in the virtual setting.
That's amazing. It's not just shutting the doors of buildings, but also shutting doors online. So let's go a little broader now, Bob. What did China Aid find after examining Chinese government actions against Christians and other people of faith during 2020?
China Aid has found with our in-depth research that in 2020, the persecution against Christian churches, against human rights lawyers, both in the government-sanctioned church and the house churches have reached really to the worst level that we have not seen since the Cultural Revolution in 1960s. I mean, this is the third year of the Communist Party's so-called Sinicization campaign, which means anything that is found not compatible with the President Xi's ideology, communism, socialism, is going to be regarded as the enemy of the state ideology. And we have seen even the church members who are organizing prayer meetings online had been targeted with the criminal and administrative detention. Just in the past few days, the largest house church in Beijing, the Beijing Zion Church, have two of their pastors being kidnapped and even sentenced to 10 days administrative detention. And we have seen, of course, under this Sinicization campaign, pastors receive 4.5 years imprisonment for refusing to put the Communist Party's posters, propaganda in their church building, for refusing to put a Communist Party's national flag at their parking lot. Of course, we have seen Pastor Wang Yi, who was sentenced to 9 years imprisonment for preaching a sermon, pleading for President Xi to suspend his crackdown, asking him to repent so that he can get salvation. That is 9 years imprisonment.
And part of that, Bob, I know we've talked in the past about facial recognition software, social credit scoring, people being denied jobs, promotions. They have low scores. They're not considered to be good communists. They don't have favors. So how is that scoring affecting Christians or people who are not part of the government-approved, government-controlled church?
Yes, 2020 marked really the first year, I think, is the whole called the national the digital authoritarianism rule with literally 2.6 billion face recognition cameras has been installed all over China, which means every Chinese will have 2 face recognition cameras are following them. The so-called social credit score had been also instated with the big data plan. If you are a Christian, if you are especially a Christian pastor or a house church leader or anyone who has a religious faith that is not compatible with communism will guaranteed have a lower score, which means you may be banned from even buying a train ticket or air flight tickets, and which means you couldn't get a promotion, which means your family members cannot join the civil servant test or join the military. So you are regarded absolutely as second or third class citizens.
A lot of Americans are afraid that may come here with vaccine passports and so forth. So finally, Bob, on this program and other CBN News programs, we've reported for some time now about the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of the ethnic Uyghurs. Many of our viewers don't realize that not all Uyghurs are Muslim. There are quite a few Uyghur Christians. Tell us about them, and do they suffer the same oppression?
Yes, you're right, Gary. The Uyghur Christians and Uyghur Muslims and even the other minorities like Kazakhs had been suffering the genocide, as the former Secretary Pompeo designated. Between 1 to 3 million of them are still in the concentration camp. China Aid just rescued a Kazakh family. The mother suffered at least 16 months in the concentration camp. She herself was abused, and also she was eyewitness, seeing a systematic government-organized forced prostitution. How can we, with a good conscience, deal with a government committing such a grave genocide and a crime against humanity, and yet we're still treating this as business as usual, like these American companies are doing in China? So it's a time to have a wake-up call.
And for more stories like this and important trends in the day's headlines, be sure to catch The Global Lane. You can watch it this evening at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, and you can find it on the CBN News Channel. Still ahead, former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker now taking on a new challenge. We'll hear why he's fighting cancel culture and censoring conservative speech among young Americans. All that story is coming up next. Stay with us.
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Scott Walker, the former conservative governor in progressive Wisconsin, is now battling the current trend of cancel culture through a strategy he calls the long game. So what exactly is his game plan? Our Paul Strand explains.
Many in the left, through this radical indoctrination, try to teach our young people to hate America.
Scott Walker warns parents and others in this Young America's Foundation video.
America is under siege. We see it on our campuses and in our culture.
That's why the former governor was anxious to lead this group, backed long ago by the likes of William F. Buckley and Ronald Reagan.
I felt now more than ever we needed to win not just the battle of the day, but the war for the heart and soul of this great republic.
With a dedication to individual liberties, free enterprise, and traditional values, the foundation has what Walker calls a long game to defeat attempts to turn America's young against their country.
You see this with the 1619 Project. You see this with a lot of the Marxist attitudes and others. They're pitting one group of Americans versus the other, and they're telling our young people that there's something fundamentally wrong with America.
How can people and organizations pushing Marxist ideas be winning in the land of the free? By controlling what people can hear and even what they can say.
This total cancel culture, this lack of free speech, and the ability for speak out and express their opinions.
It even includes an element of pushing vulnerable kids to question and dislike themselves.
You can't just disagree and debate the issues, that if someone doesn't fully agree with their leftist dogma, that they're racist or sexist or transphobic or whatever the word might be, that there's no respect for people who have different viewpoints.
Walker points to studies showing how some 80% of the students who don't agree still feel compelled to speak in favor of the far left.
If they don't buy into the radical dogma, they'll be written up, it'll be in the permanent record. You see this time and time and time again.
Numbers, however, show that young victims of propaganda can be turned. For instance, the Young America's Foundation poll shows 69% of students would back a $15 minimum wage. After they learn it would kill 1.4 million jobs, that support drops to 52%.
When we start to tell them a conservative point of view that makes them understand the things they're hearing, in many cases, aren't fair, they're not right, they're not just, they tend to gravitate more towards our point of view, which is exactly why the left wants to cancel out any conservative thought and discussion in the first place.
Here's the Foundation's long game strategy. Get their group active on all of America's 4,000-plus college campuses. Expand their conservative influence into middle schools as well as high schools. Sponsor 1 million students to attend YAF programs. And create a network for conservative professors and teachers. Walker's group is also fighting schools that attempt to censor conservatives, as it recently took UC Berkeley to court.
They claim they're for free speech, but we had conservative students there we were working with, trying to bring in some conservative speakers. They put up a barrier that said you couldn't have the event after 3. You couldn't advertise. The security costs were 3 times what they charged left-leaning groups to bring in a U.S. Supreme Court justice.
YAF won in court.
If we can win at UC Berkeley, we can win anywhere in America, and we will. The Constitution's on our side, and we're going to invoke it every state, every campus, every place we need to.
Walker knows it's often hard to get conservatives deeply involved with battles over politics and power.
We're not consumed with government. We're not consumed with power. We live our own lives.
But they need to be fighting back.
Reset. Oh! If we want to be able to support and pass on to our children, our family, the kind of America we inherited from our parents and grandparents, we have to do more.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
And coming up, actor Chuck Norris honors his mother as she turns 100 this Mother's Day weekend. We'll tell you what he had to say when we come back. Stay with us.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
From Washington, D.C.
Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation.
Uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody, John Jessup, Jenna Browder, and Eric Phillips, bringing you the political news that matters.
Regulation on the energy industry are going to have dramatic ripple effects throughout the economy.
News you can trust.
We're people who are committed to protecting the most weakest and the most vulnerable.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6.
Movie and television star Chuck Norris pays tribute to his mother, who turns 100 years old this week. In an exclusive article for WND.com, Norris wrote about how his mom, Wilma Norris Knight, was born into poverty in Wilson, Oklahoma. The actor said his father abandoned their family and his mother had to raise 3 boys all alone, but she was able to set a great example for them, losing 2 husbands and more, plus having cancer repeatedly. And he pointed to her active prayer life, saying, quote, "My mother has prayed for me all my life through thick and thin," Norris wrote. "When I was born, I almost died from complications. When nearly losing my soul to Hollywood a few decades ago, she was back home praying for my success and salvation. She even prayed for me to find a woman to change my life, and it worked. I equally celebrate my wife, Gina, during this Mother's Day week." Norris called his wife the love of his life and his best friend. You can find out more about Walker wrote what he wrote about his mother, and hear his advice for raising children at CBNNews.com. Time now for your Thursday Thankful, and today I hope you'll join me in this prayer of gratitude. Father, thank you for multiplying your grace and peace in my life. Knowing you gives me all I need to live a life that pleases you. With that word, make this a thankful Thursday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there anytime, as well as online at CBNNews.com. Please take a moment to let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can write us. The address right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@CBN.com. And of course, we're available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We would love to hear from you. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a thankful Thursday. I'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.